You get 3 rolls on the dice tower, and I got my random questions here. Whatever you roll, that's where we start. Do you know about dice towers?
Not
Up
much.
here.
Oh,
It's much more exciting. Okay. Much more exciting if you roll down the tower. All right. Oh, yay, it's a Yellowjackets one. So this was inspired by the Goonies reference in episode 9. Can you name a time when a movie or a TV show inspired you to do something, to like try a new hobby or, I don't know, to reprocess something, to call your family, anything like that?
I mean, this is gonna sound really dark, but every like movie about people dying, like people that have like cancer, put my entire life back in perspective, and I feel like it really affects, like, sadly, usually only like the following week, and then we all fall back into our old habits of taking everything for granted. But I do love movies that kind of stick with me and make me just take a step back and live a little bit more in the present moment and just like hug the people I love dearest a little tighter that day.
That's such a beautiful answer. I'm like, oh, take up cooking or try a new sport. But like, that's a really profound way to look at all of that. I like it. Yeah. All right, next roll in the tower. Number 6. This one is set vice. Do you have an on-set vice? Like a thing you turn to, maybe like a food or a drink that helps you power through a really tough day?
I mean, I don't have a specific one because I'm just always at Crafty snacking like 24. Everyone in my entourage knows this about me. I am the biggest foodie. I will literally have breakfast in my trailer and then get on set, and the Crafty's not even set up yet, and I'm like, hi Mikey, can I just grab a so yeah, but I will say I love snacking on popcorn. That's kind of been my latest.
Specific kind of popcorn?
The lesser evil one.
Ooh, I
the
have
Oh
not
My
had that.
G or the Oh My Ghee.
I feel like maybe if I saw the bag, I would know what it was.
I feel like you've definitely seen it, but yeah, they have like avocado oil, Himalayan, so like it's, yeah.
I feel like I've seen lots of videos of you cooking on TikTok too.
Yes.
So you cook a lot?
I love to cook. I've always said if I were to do another profession, I would maybe be like a baker.
Ooh.
And then you have to wake up really early, I've learned, to be a baker, so I'm like, maybe not.
I also can't cook, so.
But I literally make 6 sourdough breads a week to feed like my entire family.
That's kind of wonderful. And I was gonna say, I feel like most of the videos that I've seen are like cooking fails where like you drop something.
But sometimes I'm successful sometimes.
Okay, that's I mean way more successful than I could ever be. I feel like my menu goes as far as like a bowl of cereal or a peanut butter sandwich.
But nothing hits like a PB&J though.
It's true.
You know what? The classics are always good.
Wait, so now I gotta give you the big burning question. Give me your ideal PB&J, like the type of peanut butter, type of jelly, type of bread. Pressure's on. I'm a snob about this.
Okay, I will be the kind of girl that goes for like a bit of I'm a bit fancy, so I will love like a good like thick sourdough. And then some kind of like natural, like non-processed peanut butter.
Makes sense.
I'm that girl. I'll go for peanut butter though, not almond butter. Almond is a little too dry. So peanut butter, crunchy. Gotta add the texture in there. And then some kind of like homemade raspberry that I made with like the berries in my garden. So like a mix between like raspberry, strawberry jam, and then...
You passed the test with flying colors. I'm very impressed. All right, one last roll in the tower. You gotta roll again.
Man.
Oh, I'm so happy you rolled this, actually. This is everyday things. What is a seemingly simple everyday thing that human beings do that is most difficult to replicate as an actor on set? So things like fake sneezing, fake waking up, stuff like that.
Okay, I don't think this is common for everyone, but I'm really bad at laughing. And I vividly remember one of my very first auditions when I was young and they were like, can you just like laugh for us? But the thing is, I have a very quiet laugh. Like it's just like no sound comes out. I'll just be like bent over and like my abs will be sore, but I'm just like, nothing comes out. So I have a really hard time to mimic like a very candid, true laugh.
I get that. As a mostly silent laugher, like especially in movies, I feel like people don't think I'm enjoying it, but I'm actually just like sitting there like shaking my shoulders.
But there's so many that like yawning is so hard. Or like waking up weirdly enough, like a real groggy wake up.
Or even just sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, I always get hyper-focused. Now I'm going to put the pressure on, but I always get hyper-focused on a character sleeping, and I'm like, are their eyelids moving?
Yeah.
Why am I even focusing on that?
I know.
Can't help it, though. Can't help it. Meanwhile, I'll watch these videos, and I'm like, what are you doing with your hands? Why are you
I know, and
holding
then you
this
do it once,
way?
and then you get in your, like, it felt authentic the first time, but then you try to, like, replicate that, and then it feels like it's too much. And this is actually a thing that I find that Melanie does best in our show, is, like, she has a way of adding all of these elements that feel very authentic by scratching her nose, or by, she, like, will press her lips together. And then I was like, oh, she does that a lot, actually. And I was like, oh, I should try to incorporate that as younger Shauna. And I tried to do it in front of the mirror. And it was so forced. I was like, I'm not doing it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies Night. I'm especially excited for this edition. I'm excited for all Yellowjackets editions of the show, but I've had a lot of returnees, and I've been waiting for the day when Sophie Nélisse comes on the show.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so
I know.
excited.
I've seen all of my castmates come on, and I'm like, hello.
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be, that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
It's hard for me because I didn't want to be an actress. I fell into the business, like, very randomly. I remember I really wanted to be in a commercial from, like, this pharmaceutical brand. Like, it was like a Walgreens, but for Montreal. And they had, like, a little song at the end, and I was like, oh, I want to do that little Uniprix, like, thing. And I actually happened to do a commercial for them, like, when I was, like, 8. And so my dream as an actress got...
You did it.
Yeah. Happened very young.
Forget an Oscar.
Yeah.
I want the pharmaceutical commercial.
Yeah. So that was that. But then there was never anyone that made me want to become an actress. It was very random how I started.
So getting into that journey a little, I was doing my reading, and I read that initially you wanted to go to the Olympics for gymnastics. Yes. Just fascinates me to no end. I have a couple questions about that. This first one might be a little hard to articulate, but, like, I love sports. So what is it about gymnastics that I guess used to, like, fill you up? Like, the thing that I always think about is I love playing golf, and there's just something about when the club, like, perfectly strikes the ball where you get, like, a sound and a feeling, and you're like, yes, I need to chase that feeling.
It makes me almost emotional when I talk about it, but, like, sticking a routine, and landing, like, without fault, and your feet just do not move from the ground, and then you, like, salute the judges, and you just know that you've killed your routine. Nothing will ever compare. And even, like, I've been chasing that feeling ever since, and I've gone close to it whenever we, like, present a movie, and like, I remember presenting a movie in Cannes, and when we get, like, a standing ovation, like, there is a bit of that thrill, but I just know in the back of my mind that there's so much that goes into it for, like, a movie to be successful, and there's so much that's out of your control. And there's something about sports, especially individual sports, that is so self-reliant that, it's just so gratifying to see all of, like, the fruit of your efforts summed up in this, like, 30-second routine. And I've never really been able to recreate that.
Oh, I totally understand that. The answer to this particular question, or questions, because I might turn it into a two-parter, might be no. But is there anything about how you trained in gymnastics that came in handy when you started to train as an actor? But then I also want the opposite. Maybe something about training for gymnastics that, like, you had to shed because it didn't serve you to think about acting that same way.
There's definitely been a lot of tools that I've been able to convey into acting. I mean, one that comes often to mind is, like, a beam routine. You have to focus on this 5-centimeter width of, like, piece of wood that you're flipping on while there's other girls racing around in the gym. There's music going on. You have your coaches, like, giving you notes while you're literally on the beam. And so you have to, like, narrow down your focus to, like, this particular event. And it kind of is similar as when I'm doing a scene and I have to be, meshed with my scene partner while there's technicians walking everywhere and there's crew and there's sometimes someone sneezes in the back, but you have to like not break character. So I think that has been very helpful. And also, I don't know that there's anything that there's just really mostly positives. Like I'm so used to being like my coaches for me were so important. And they would like pinpoint tiny details like, oh, your toe, like literally your toe was not pointed while I was like letting go of the bar midair. And so to have it be notes that are that specific, I think have really been helpful when it comes to acting. And I love to be directed. I love to be told like this specific line, just try to tweak it this much. And so, yeah, I love to be molded.
This is so hyper-specific, but now I can't help but ask, do you have a most memorable note you've ever received from a director?
Yes, but it's not a positive one. Oh. And I've been told this, we tend to remember the negatives, which is sad, but
I'm guilty of that.
I remember doing an audition, which I ended up booking, actually, but I did the first take, and she was like, great, can we do it again? And now can you do it? And it doesn't look like you're acting? And I was like, yes, which is kind of like the worst note you can ever receive. Like you're basically being told that like you're so obviously acting when that's like it's the complete opposite of what you're supposed to be doing as an actor.
Feel like a very productive note too, because like how do you even begin to take a first step to addressing that?
I know. I mean, then we went into like conversations about the scene and how we could tweak it, but I ended up getting it. But yeah, it was a rough start to that callback. Yeah,
fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. So talking about one of the first very, very big things you booked. I brought it up already. It's The Book Thief. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because I did some reading on Wikipedia and wherever those articles led me.
Yes.
But so you book The Book Thief, you do that movie, and that's kind of what convinced you to go down the acting path versus pursuing going to the Olympics for gymnastics. What was it about making that movie that convinced you or made you know with certainty, like, yes, acting is the way that I need to go now?
It was mostly, I don't think I've ever actually really took acting that seriously until I went to college, actually. That's when I really was like, oh, I should really pursue acting. The thing with The Book Thief was because we were shooting for 5 months, in Berlin, I couldn't keep up. I had been juggling acting and gymnastics prior to The Book Thief, but that was just too long of a shoot for me to be able to step away from gymnastics and go back and be at that same level. And so that's when I kind of had to make a choice in quitting gymnastics if I was going to take on The Book Thief. And I had been, at the time, at the top of my 12 years of age, I thought acting seemed easy because my very first movie was Oscar nominated, and I was like, oh, it'll always be like this. It's not. I've come to learn pretty quickly.
Oh, the purity of when you start in this industry at that age.
Yeah. But I loved the book so much, and I had been very, very injured at the time as well, and that played a huge part into it. I had knee injury, ankle injuries that had been like dragging, and so I was like, I think acting is a healthier path. Which again, not necessarily, but yeah.
Different challenges, different pros and cons, you know.
Yeah.
Wait, so did you study acting in university?
I didn't do it all I took like a cinema class when I went to like, I guess it's not even college because our school system is different back in Montreal.
I didn't know what word to use just now, university or college.
So us, it would be like, it's called cégep, which is basically like right after high school but before university.
Gotcha.
This is like this 2-year gap, and I took cinema, which was really fun actually because it had nothing to do with acting. Like it wasn't theater school, it wasn't acting school, but I got to learn about like the history of arts and just like, it's weird how I grew up in this industry and I would see people around me doing like the sound guys doing like the room tone, and I was like, oh, I see it every day and I know it's happening. I don't really know its purpose. And then when I got to make my own short movies and I got to do my own editing, that's when I was like, oh, that's why the room tone is there.
Oh, I have a follow-up to that. If you could learn more about one specific job on a film set, what would you choose and why?
I mean, directing, but directing just because it encompasses everything, and I think a good director doesn't have to, but it's nice to be skilled in kind of like, even down to like lighting, and again, like, even if you grew up as like a PA, like understanding how every single department is so crucial for like a set to run smoothly, and all of the pieces have to, operate as one, because then you'll lose light or this or that, and it will create chaos. So I guess directing, because, it encompasses everything.
Do you have an itch to direct? Now I feel like I just put you on the spot.
I mean, I would love to. It's definitely been a passion of mine forever, but I feel very intimidated by it because I feel like people are doing it so well already. And so I'm like, what am I going to do differently or better than... Not that it is a competition of who does it best, but I feel like kind of an outsider to that space.
I get it, but then you just got to do it once, and then all of a sudden you're in the space.
I know, I just have to start shadowing directors.
Just because Courtney was just in this movie is on my mind, and also because Brittany Snow was a guest in the past. We were talking a lot about Parachute, and I don't know, you could just totally tell that, like, Brittany's got like that natural eye for what needs to happen behind the lens in addition to in front of it.
And I do see a big difference when working with directors that have a past in acting. There's a complete different approach, and there's like this other kind of knowledge of it just not being like the final product. There's like a more intimate and personal approach, which I love.
I feel like this kind of builds on this in a sense, veering away from the behind-the-scenes stuff and into your craft in front of the lens, especially as someone who started in this industry so young. Because I've spoken to a bunch of people who started as child actors, and, a lot of them have had that moment on set where I guess they kind of realize that suddenly they're being treated like an adult, like their voice is being heard in a different kind of way and has a different kind of weight to it. Did you ever have that along the way?
Yes. At first it was mostly, I wasn't like, I guess, babied as much anymore. And I guess to an extent taken a bit more seriously. And I felt like I was just a bit more in discussions, especially when it comes to blocking a scene. Beforehand, I would just follow wherever the director put me. Whereas now I feel like I have a bit more of a say and a bit more of like an intention and a reason behind, like, no, I feel like I should move there because I'm the one playing this character, and I know where the character would move in space. But yeah, I mean, I still think it's, at the end of the day, it's such a collaborative process, and it's not as if suddenly like I get to make all the calls. And like I mentioned earlier, like I love being directed. I love being told what to do. So but I definitely think that there's more of like an honest rapport between the director and me now.
I love highlighting that connection between like actor and director with like enjoying the feeling of being directed.
And it's not for everyone. I know a lot of people don't love to be directed, and it can create definitely a lot of conflict, but
one of the most traumatizing experiences I've ever had. I went to film school, and I very much appreciate the fact that the program that I did made us do things like this. But there was one class I took. It was directing the actor, and every single one of us were like directing shorts and stuff.
Yeah.
But they wanted us all to feel how it felt to be directed. And I'll tell, like, I am not an actor in any capacity, but hearing someone give me a note and trying to process how to make like everything do that note. This is why I sit here and not there.
I like that.
It's something else. So let's get into Yellowjackets. One of the first questions I had leans a little more like, I guess, kind of like businessy versus the art. But I'm fascinated by someone's experience breaking out in film and television because we have a very limited vantage point, and sometimes how we see it is not what the person going through the breakout actually feels. So I will call your breakout Yellowjackets, but if you want to sub in something else, feel free.
I still don't feel like I'm breaking out, to be honest.
But that's also the thing. It's like it happens like again and again and again and in new ways and opens new doors. So I guess as it pertains to Yellowjackets, What would you say is the biggest misconception you had about what it would mean to be a part of a show that took off like that? But then also, what is something about Yellowjackets' success that has maybe changed things for the better for you?
I think I wasn't expecting the pressure I would feel to live up to the expectations of the fan base. I think coming from more of a film background, I've never had that sort of support by the audience before, because you do a project and people love it, but then there's like, I've never been part of like a sequel movie where people have expectations. And so we kind of went into the first season we felt pretty confident, and we obviously were like, loved the scripts, but we didn't really know what we were getting into. And then when the show was so successful, I was like, this is great, but now people like, we need to be as good, if not better, and they have all of these theories, and they start rooting for characters, and you just don't want to disappoint. So that, I think, coming into the second season, I really felt that additional pressure. And something positive that came out of it, I mean, on the same note, like just having so many people, that it just feels like overwhelming, the amount of like love and support, but it's also opened doors to meet with, creatives in the industry that I admire, and even, bucket list moments even, or pinch me moments where, we're at certain awards shows and I'm sitting next to people that it feels very weird, and I still can't admit that they're like my peers, I guess. And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, we both are on like an Emmy-nominated show, but I'm like, oh, these are people that I admire, and I don't feel like I have leveled up to them. And so to be sitting next to them feels a little bit surreal, and I still feel like I get the imposter syndrome a lot.
I'll make this weird for you for one quick second, then I promise I won't do it to you again. Not only do you very much deserve to be at those tables, you deserve to have a bigger seat at those tables. I'll tell you again, episode 6 of season 2 is one of the most incredible acting beats I've ever seen in that great show, but also of that year and beyond. I thought you deserved a lot more credit in that. Not that it comes down to awards and awards alone, but I thought you deserved it.
I appreciate that.
I'll mean it. So let's get into finding your character here. I want to start at the very beginning. Eventually we'll get into, season 3 finale spoilers. But to start, I wanted to lean on Ella actually put this in my mind like a year ago, and I've started to ask this a lot. I don't know if this is how you have a journey with a character, but she was kind of explaining that when you start a new TV show, one of the most exciting things is when you're on unstable ground with a new character, but then you do that thing either in prep or on set when you have just found your character. Mm-hmm. Did you have that at the beginning with Shauna, and if so, when?
I think for me it was the physical transformation. I've never in my life before Shauna had to change my hair color or the color of my eyes. And I think that was like a big shock for me at first. And it really felt like, and I mean, it's a pretty minor transformation compared to like, I don't know, DiCaprio in The Revenant that like looks completely, or I don't know. There are way bigger transformations out there. But I was like, oh, it was the first time that I felt like someone completely different. And then, yeah, and I think, I don't know, I think the entire first season I didn't really know. And it, because it is a show that walks such a fine line, that I think we were kind of on unstable grounds the entire first season because we didn't want to lean too far on a side or the other. And I think it was the same for my character. And I think it was seeing both Melanie and I, the way it sort of just clicked and it just worked without us even having to do that much. And we were like, oh, I think we just have the exact same essence for this character.
Have you found a new anchor point since? So a lot has happened after season 1, in 2, and now 3. Is there, I mean, it might be the birth scene, but is there any kind of like defining moment that maybe, gave you more clarity with the character as you're playing with the mystery and kind of like towing the line between the multiple layers she has?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like no, because she just changes so much every season, which has been such an honor as an actor to be able to portray all of these different facets and colors. And so whenever I feel like I start to know her, like by the end of the first season, and I'm like, oh, this is who she is, and then I come into season 2, and then she's completely different because now she's undergoing so much grief, and she's finding new sides of herself. She's discovering herself. She's finding her voice and her footing and her inner power, I guess, in a way. And then cut to season 3, and she's just become so mean.
She's so mad.
And I'm like, oh, I knew she was dark, but this is like dark.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm always discovering her in a different light, and yeah.
I'll tie that darkness into what you were saying earlier about the fan base briefly, because like this is a big thing when a character takes a dark turn, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up right now, but like we used to do this show on Collider called Movie Trivia Schmodown. It was like basically a mashup between wrestling and movie trivia, and they had characters and storylines. So they had, man, what is it called? It's heels. Heels are the bad ones.
Okay.
Faces are the good ones. And anyway, like I would never want to be a heel because even though it wasn't true, I wouldn't want the viewers to get mad at me.
Yeah.
What has your journey been like with season 3 when so much of what Shauna does is mean and fueled by rage, but like you need to have that shield up and not take that part personally, and more so the part that like her rage is being effective.
I mean, they're not hating me, hopefully.
No, they're hating
I mean,
on,
it's a character.
they're hating on Shauna.
I didn't write this. I just do what's on paper. They can't be mad at me. So I definitely don't take it personal. I also will admit, like, I don't really read that much. Like, I try to, again, stay out of, like, the controversy just because I think you have to believe the good and you have to believe the bad. And there's no right or wrong, and you're allowed to hate her. Like, that's fine. She's hateable this year. Like, it's fine. But I love rooting for a villain, and I think the quality of this show is that because the showrunners did such an amazing job at crafting these characters so beautifully that you still root for them despite everything that they go for. And at least I root for Shauna because you have such, like, you see all of her roots and all of the reasons that led her to the person that she is in the 3rd season. And I find so much empathy. And I wouldn't say that everything that she's done is obviously forgivable. But I understand where it all stems from. And for me, I really believe in the saying that, like, hurt people. And I think that's so true. Like, she has undergone so much grief and loss, and this is just a teenage girl that doesn't have the tools and the environment around her to help her cope in a way that's sane and healthy. And I think that I don't want to say, I think that I would react the same way she did. Maybe not. But yeah, I just think it's understandable that a character could, react the way that Shauna does, having undergone so much.
Couldn't agree more. I feel like we'll get to this particular scene in a little bit, but the one that I keep thinking about is that even after everything Shauna has done, when Melissa yells at her, like, why can't you just be a good person? All I want for her is to reach out and take that lifeline and come back to the light.
I know.
Obviously she can't. We'll get there. All right, let's kick off a little roadmap here. So I'll start with episode 8, which I believe is the first time that we see the moth, and that comes up a couple of times in the season. I guess when you read something like that on the page, what are some big burning questions you have for the showrunners, just to like start to wrap your head around what that could mean and how those visions make her feel?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's difficult because the showrunners are very secretive in what they give us. We can talk a lot about the past, but it's really hard for us to talk about what it means for, like, the future. Or, I mean, I definitely think the Moths are maybe prefacing something darker that's about to happen and are, like, a tie into, the fact that, I mean, I just think they mean that, like, they're a beautiful metaphor that darkness will follow you wherever you go. When you've done such horrific or actions, until you, I guess, make peace with it. And I think that Shauna has clearly, from her adult self, has not made peace with herself and with the action that she's committed. And so I think the moths are just a symbol of like all of that darkness and all of that turbulence that happened, and that will just follow her and keep like digging in a hole into her life.
Can't believe how much I know about Death's Head moths. Hawk moths, that's what they were called, now that they popped up in the show. Like, there's just so many, like, interesting little facts. Like, I saw somewhere that they're honey stealers.
Oh, no
way.
Like,
they go, I think they go into like, hives, and because of, like, the way they look, or there's something maybe they emit that can mask them, and they steal from the bees. And then there was another thing that I read where they're like, a moth is something that feeds on the tears of others. And I'm like, oh.
That is so dark.
Like, might make a little sense with the phase she's in right now. I love how I'm jumping from that to this. But part of that answer was making me think about something that Liv brought up when they were in for Collider Forces. So we were talking about their final scenes with Lauren and what it was like playing that version of Van, and how the version of Van that they were playing was basically looking at the older version thinking like, you know, you're cool and I'm proud of you. And it was making me wonder, if your Shauna met with Melanie's Shauna, like, what would she think of Shauna in the present day?
Oh, my God. I think she would be disappointed, at least because I think it's very clear that Shauna's biggest fear is to go back to that mundane lifestyle that she had before the crash, and she's just really become, again, the person that she hates the most. And so I think she'd be disappointed to see that she hasn't turned out the way she was hoping to, and she still lives in that small town and married to the high school sweetheart. And I think she'd find it sad to see that, again, she hasn't forgiven herself, because all I see of Shauna this season is like someone that, like you said, needs to grab onto that lifeline and just needs someone to hold her and say it's okay, and to take some of the weight off of her shoulders, and to have some sort of like find it within her to have some self-compassion. And clearly she's never been able to find that within her. So I think she would be, just very sad to see that she's kind of hasn't really been able to break free from her own prison.
I feel this while I'm watching the show, but then you all come in here and you articulate things like that so beautifully, and it hurts my heart for them.
Well, it makes me happy that you say that I'm articulate, because it's literally my biggest fear. I say this to everyone, and I'm like, I'm so not articulate, so thank you for saying that.
Job very well. Truly, like I mean this very sincerely too, one of the greatest joys with covering this show is that every single time I talk to one of you, it is always abundantly clear how much passion you have for the show and how much thought you put into the characters. And I do think we see that radiating off screen in the finished product. Makes it a whole lot more engaging for me, and I love it. All right. We're still in episode 8. Oh, so here's the next part I wanted to jump to. It is the decision to stay in the wilderness. This is a theory question. Let's say Lottie hadn't gotten the ball rolling with that. Do you think Shauna ultimately would have come to that conclusion herself, or would she have left?
I think she would have. I think she would have. I think she maybe would have, like, started following the group, and then as they were getting closer and closer to rescue, I think she would have started panicking and being like, wait, I actually don't think I can go through this. I don't actually think I can be rescued. I mean, partially because of all of the shame for the things that she's done. And, I mean, how can you explain, like, voluntary murder? Like, what's so crazy about the season is previous seasons, a lot of it was about survival, whereas this one, that's, for me, the main shift is that this is not about survival anymore. And so how do you explain that to society when you're rescued? But I think also part of why a reason why Shauna wants to stay out in the wilderness is like I said, she just doesn't want to go back to that mundane lifestyle. And in the wilderness, she can access a part of herself that is okay to be. But she can't be that version of herself back in society when there are societal rules and guidelines you have to follow. And I think she has found, she's like truly been able to tap into a darkness of herself that's okay. And I think that's the reason why she would maybe want to stay.
Hearing you explain it that way brings me right back to the conversation between Shauna and Melissa in the hut, where Melissa's like, what are you looking forward to most about going home? And literally everything she names is like
her worst nightmare.
Like the mundane joys of day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And that is not what you're feeling at all. It's a big part of the reason why I've loved seeing that relationship, because I think it's enhanced both sides of it quite well. I'll go straight to that next, and I'll focus on that scene I wanted to talk about in episode 9. I think that actually is probably one of my favorite scenes of the whole season, when you two have that fight that ultimately results in her nearly shooting Melissa. I have a couple specifics, but first I'll give you a big, broad question. What was it like working on that scene with Jenna? Did you talk it through at all and have any, I don't know, maybe specific goals you wanted to hit when jumping into such an intense, for Shauna at least, rage-filled moment?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it was so interesting because it felt like Jenna and I were so sad because we were like, oh, this relationship has felt so short-lived. It's already coming to its end by like episode, when you said 8. Is that an episode?
I guess 9.
8 or If
I call this the breakup scene, that's 9.
Yeah. And I wish we could have like dove in a little bit deeper. But yeah, I think we were just trying to. Yeah, I don't know. We didn't really discuss it, I guess, that much. Jenna was just like so good and so vulnerable and so heartbreaking to watch that it made my job harder, because I was like, oh, I don't want to be yelling at you and like crushing your heart. But I love that scene because you finally see Jenna or Melissa stepping up for herself. And, it's as if Melissa has utilized everything that Shauna's taught her, but in an actual positive way, and is like the version that Shauna wishes she could be but can't, because she has now the strength and, after being forced to like slice his Achilles heel, and she has now also discovered a new part of herself, but is actually still in her core like a good person. And so I think having that reflected so visually in Shauna's face, I think is really hard for her, because she wishes she could be that version of herself, but she can't.
Can it hurt so much hearing you explain it that way? Oh, all right. Very, very specific question first. I love reaction shots. I know sometimes you all film like different versions of reaction shots. So I don't know how specifically you remember this one. But again, I love that line that she shoots back at Shauna. Why can't you just be a nice person? And then the camera does hold on you for a little while. What did you want to convey with that particular reaction shot?
Well, I'm curious to see I haven't seen the episode actually, so I don't know how what shot they used. I think I really just wanted to show the inner struggle. And I want it, because she has been so dark, I wanted it to be that moment where people still see hope within Shauna, and see that it is there within her and that she is not a bad person fundamentally to her core. But she's just buried so many emotions so far down. And it is like, it's so humiliating to be put on the spot in front of so many people. And I think so far we've only seen Shauna opening up to Melissa. And so Melissa didn't choose her moment to confront her in front of the group, because that was definitely not Shauna in that moment. It's just it's too much to admit to something, and it would be opening like such a can of worms in front of so many people. And so I just wanted to showcase the inner struggle between like her actually not wanting to lose Melissa, but also on the other side wanting to maintain power over the group, and how conflicted she feels.
Great success. I know you haven't seen it, but I wrote down what I saw in that, and it was specifically that like you're your eyes wander, and as they wander, I can see the internal struggle between being concerned what everybody else thinks, what she feels, and what she thinks she needs to do. And I love that. That also raises another question that I had that is, I think tied to the episode before. It's the present day material with Shauna and Melissa, and I believe Melissa tells Shauna she never really loved her. Do you think that would be true for both of your characters in the 90s? Do they ever have that moment where they're like, I think I love this person?
I think love is a very strong word, and I don't... I think she saw a lot of herself in Melissa, and I think that relationship could have flourished had there been different circumstances. I think Shauna's at a place where she doesn't love herself. So how can you love someone else if you can't even find it within yourself? And so, I do think that she feels like a strong connection, and there is something very honest about their relationship, but I just think the circumstances are so flawed that there was no way that this was going to end up in something good.
Just can't live happily ever after, none of them. Before I get into episode 10 now, this is something that I believe starts a couple of episodes earlier. It's the hair thing. It also comes up in episode 10. But what is your first reaction when you read something like that? I love how people have very specifically zeroed in on the fact that Shauna kept Hannah's hair and is playing with it, and then the hair idea comes back again in the finale episode.
Yeah, I've tried to actually, that's one thing that I read on Reddit, and I was like, what do they mean? Because I definitely think it's it's weird because it's is it some weird of messed up body count for the people that she's killed? I kind of see it that way, and then the full gown with all the pieces of hair is almost like a trophy or an ornament of all of the killings, which is so dark. And I don't see why someone would do that, but again, it just taps into how unwell Shauna is this season.
Would.
Yeah.
I love how it starts here and then it ends here. I'm going to get to that ending in a minute, but that coming full circle on Pit Girl like that, I thought was just so exquisitely well done. First, the hunt. So when Shauna basically goes along with the idea of having another hunt, do you think there's even the tiniest piece of her that fears drawing the Queen of Hearts herself?
I think she's smart enough to know that maybe people have it out for her, and so that there would be a way, not even that, I think she's sensing that maybe the game could be rigged in order for her to have it, but I also think, I actually don't think she wanted another hunt. I don't think, I think, and that part, there's a moment of she's goes along with it, but that's not necessarily her doing. She didn't want that, but she knows that as the up and coming leader, that's how she it's where her vote must sway. But I also think that, again, the hunt for her is something a bit exciting. I think it taps into the thrill, and I think they at this point are so desensitized from death, and it almost doesn't feel it's too tangible. It's something that doesn't feel as scary as it maybe felt 2 seasons back. And so I think now at least Shauna almost does see it as just a game, and I don't think she's as scared, because for her she's not as concerned about dying as she's just in this deep crave for vengeance and thrill, and just feeling those heightened emotions.
I feel it when I watch it. I'm also obsessed with her hunt hat.
I know.
That's the coolest mask. I love all the masks. That one in particular.
It was my favorite one. To be fair,
clever.
It's extremely encumbersome and very not practical. When I got to shoot with it, I was like, whoa, this is kind of a nightmare. But it was, to me, the one that felt the scariest when I tried it on in the fitting, and I was like, ooh, I want that one.
It's just, I just love when you see something so basic and functional, like a baseball hat, being morphed into this, this thing of violence and evil.
And I cannot emphasis enough how our costume designers did such an amazing, every day on set, they would add in subtle pieces that I was like, oh, I never would have thought about doing, like the way they did like some like belts out of like the seat belts from the plane. They used the brain that goes behind all of that is amazing.
Liv was telling me that there's one point where Van's hair is tied back by a piece of Taissa's wrap during the moment when they said, I love you. And I'm like, that's like, who's going to know that? But something about that just, I don't know, like gives me goosebumps. And I still think even if we don't know that specific bit of information, fills out the world in a really authentic way.
Yeah.
All right, a couple other bits to hit here. First one is another reaction shot question. So I love this moment between Shauna and Travis before the hunt begins. So he says, don't you ever wonder whose reality we're in? I'm pretty sure that some of my thoughts are Javi's thoughts. My favorite thoughts are Jackie's, the slumber party makeouts, the jealousy, betrayal. How much does that comment really seep in for her? Is it just about like Travis, I'm mad at you for saying this and like kind of get away? Or does it, I guess, have a lingering effect where what she's done weighs on her mind differently?
I mean, I think someone actually said a really interesting theory the other day that when he talks about the slumber parties and the makeouts, that it was Jackie and Shauna making out. And I was like, oh, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as like Jackie always getting the hot guy and Shauna always living in Jackie's shadow. And I was like, oh, maybe there was a moment in like typical girls growing up in high school, like maybe there were moments of Jackie and Shauna making out. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. But I think right now she, in that moment, it's the kind of comment that she doesn't think about twice in the moment because she's so focused on her goal. But I think it's the kind of like words that once she'll settle down and have a moment to think, it'll take on a whole different meaning later on.
Reverberate.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Next question on my list was her relationship with Taissa. So there's a moment of this happening in episode 10, but it also does pop up once or twice throughout the season. What do you think it is about Taissa that makes her the only person that could get Shauna to back down? Because like every time Shauna's going full force in maybe like a dark, dangerous direction, the only person who could ever get her to stop dead in her tracks is when Taissa says, like I think in episode 10, it's specifically, if you know what's good for you, you'll back up. And she listens.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like this mutual respect between the two, which I really love. I mean, I definitely think a lot of it stems from, Taissa's support with Jackie's secret that the secret she was hiding from Jackie, and undergoing the abortion together and the support in the pregnancy episode. And so there's like this mutual bond that I don't think can ever be broken. And yeah, there's this like silent support between the two. And I think also they were both kind of like on the non-cult side in the first seasons. And so I think Taissa is also the character she maybe trusts the most.
I always wonder that, who everyone trusts the most and respects the most. And I like that I could feel that between the two of them, especially towards the tail end of the season. So now we've hit Antler Queen zone. First question about that. What was it like putting on the full Antler Queen costume for the very first time?
I mean, it was fun. I put it on in like the fitting, so it wasn't as if I was like crowned on set. Yeah, it's just weird because every like Courtney's had it and then Sophie's had it, and it definitely feels like we are all like very different versions of the Antler Queen. And like Courtney is just so tall and there's something so statuesque about her wearing it. And on the contrary, Sophie almost feels like she's too small to be wearing such like an immense and imposing costume. And so, yeah, I don't know how, I mean, I was excited and I was like, oh, wow, I really can't see anything through this. That was my first thought. I was like, how am I not going to trip? Yeah.
I get that. I feel like it's like that with that and the masks.
Yeah.
So you kind of just hinted at this in terms of, like build and how one looks as the Antler Queen. But what do you think Shauna thinks it means to wield that power and I guess be a good Antler queen, if that can make any sense at all.
Yeah, I don't think Shauna knows how to be a good Antler queen. Or maybe now that she's in that position, she'll change. I definitely think she rules in a very different way. Like, her thirst for vengeance and for ruling was, like, so desperate, which was led her to commit really bad things. But I think she's gotten to where she is by manipulating a lot of people and instilling fear. And to me, I mean, me personally, I don't think that leading by fear is ever a good way of leading. But hopefully that now that she's gotten what she's wanted, it will soothe some of that thirst for, like, vengeance, and that she maybe can become an Antler queen. I don't know. A good Antler queen.
Does Natalie disappearing ruin that, though?
I mean, kind of, because then, yeah, and I think she'll realize that the power that she thought she had over these people might not be as strong as she thought, because obviously they were all plotting in her back, and they've made this entire scheme for Natalie to be able to escape. So I think she'll definitely feel very betrayed by the group.
All right. I'll add in one question about a potential season 4. And, like, I know you know nothing, so this is just pure theory territory. At the very end of season 3, what do you think is Shauna's greatest strength, the thing that could tee her up for success in terms of getting what she wants and ruling the way she wants next season? But then also, what is now her greatest weakness, the thing that could do her in?
I mean, I think her greatest strength is her greatest weakness. I think it's like her inner darkness, and that, like, she is so strong and powerful, but I think if she utilizes that properly, she could lead the group in, like, a very respectable, like, way, because I do think that she can be convincing and she can be opinionated, and if she used that for good and to help these people, it could flourish tremendously. But I think that if she keeps going down the path that she's going with that power currently, it will destroy her and the group.
I'll just add one of my thoughts on a greatest weakness, because I think it speaks to how damn good your work is in this season. There's so many moments where just, like, everything about your expression and watching your eyes dart around just signals to the fact that, like, Shauna is on high alert and can't trust anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this is a very extreme situation, I feel like anybody who has ever second-guessed themselves can, at the very least, feel the hurt that one might feel and what that might do to someone's mind if they're looking around and worrying that you don't like me, you don't believe in me, you won't follow me.
I think it's those little voices that will maybe start to, like, creep in. Yeah.
I feel for all of that. I feel for her if that happens,
Yeah.
but I feel for everybody around her even more. All right, we've hit the last question of Collider Ladies Night. Every single one of these ends with this particular question. So clearly in this industry, we give each other awards. That is super cool. I do think we should keep doing that. I find that nobody tells themselves good job as much as they should, though. So want to know something you accomplished making Yellowjackets Season 3 that you can always look back on and say, you know what, really proud of what I did there.
Wow. I'm proud of, like, the integrity of our group. Like, I feel like we have stayed so, like, true to ourselves, true to the show. And I feel very proud of, like, the support that we've found within each other. I think it's such a big ensemble of girls we all have very strong-minded personalities. And I think that we have utilized that for good, and the way that we, like, hype each other up on set, like, and that we encourage each other, and that we also are not scared to be vulnerable within each other. Like, I always turn to these girls for notes. I mean, Courtney specifically, because she's my best friend. And but every time I do a scene and I look at her, I'm like, what can I change? And she'll tell me, and she's like, that was a bit big. And I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of, like, the people that we are as, like, as a group.
That was a beautiful answer. I love that. And again, it goes back to the idea of like me talking to all of you and just feeling how much you care. I feel like that quality is also something that does heavily impact the finished product and makes the fan base very excited to watch the show and support you all. I will always be here to do that. I'm just obsessed with this and talking to you all.
And we're always very excited when you come on.
I have endless questions. I could have gone on and on, but you have many things to do today. I'm going to say congrats on everything you've accomplished.
Thank you.
Yellowjackets Season 3 and everything coming your way in the future. Hurry up and come back to Ladies Night.
I will be anytime you'll have me.
Always.
Thank you so much.